Welcome to Deges Dragons.
I thought this was going to be hard, but...
Welcome to Deges Dragons.
Who wants some of the ripper?
Take chance, baby. Woo!
Slow down!
He's fully Captain Crunch. I'm a man of the people.
Shattered world.
Ripper always knows!
And welcome to another episode of the Degescast, the supplemental podcast for our YouTube show, Deges and Dragons. I'm your host, Nate Lindberg, and you can find me all over Twitter at Nate Lindberg. You can follow our brand on Twitter, Facebook, and most importantly, YouTube at DegeTime. Now, we're 3 episodes into our Shattered series, and joining me today to talk about it, we've got the only person I've ever known to be able to lick his own elbow. True story. He's a veteran RPG gamer and game master in his own right, and a permanent member of our player panel, Tony Schmutzness.
I'm not quite sure if I can still lick it, but at least we have that video of it.
I do. I have a video of it. If I don't know, maybe I'll post it. If people want to see it, I can post it somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in the annals of my files from high school, but I have it somewhere. But yes, he may not be able to lick his own elbow, but he's certainly licked me every time we've played Super Smash Brothers over the past 20 years or so. He's our DegeTime game master and resident psychology and therapy expert, Conrad.
How many times are we going to say lick in the opening?
Well, you know,
Enough.
Yeah.
I
think that last one made it just enough times.
Just enough. I was trying to think of a good segue from elbows, and I don't know. That's just what I came up with. And also on the line with us tonight, joining us from It's Never Dark Enough, let's welcome to the Degescast one of the developers of Shattered, Zip. Zip, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm pretty sure it was a straw, just so you know. I was paying attention in the episode. You stabbed him with a straw.
That's right.
That's good.
No, that's...
I made notes.
Apparently so. More so than me, although I think that just caught me off guard. I'm like, wait, a straw? What are you talking about? Okay. So you know, like we've done the past few weeks, we talked to Tex, we talked to Lost about our gameplay. So we're gonna do the same here with the Zip tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's awesome having you. And you know, Zip, now that you've seen the first few episodes, what do you think of what we've done with Shattered? You know, the stories that we're telling. Any speculation on what's going on right now, seeing how we're a little over halfway done?
Now that we're a few episodes in, I have to say first off that the intro to explaining the game was fantastic. And I don't know, and I've said that before in Discord, but I don't know if we could have done a better explanation video ourselves. So hats off to you guys.
Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm blushing.
You sound like it. Yeah, I think the whole I'm really excited to see where this whole wretched missile crisis goes, and you know, like it. I have been thoroughly enjoyed and cackling like a madman through the entire series.
I'm glad to hear it.
And yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and you know, you guys, it's very obvious that you guys gelled, you know, very easily as a group. Yeah, it's the best of everything I hope to see from any tabletop group.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. I think it was either with Tex or Lost. I can't remember at this point, but you know, this group, I mean, they'd never actually been together. You know, they've all obviously tabletop games. Some of them, like I know Tony and Paul had played before, and I'm pretty sure Billy and Jonas had played before together, but this group as a whole hadn't, and they gelled really, really well together. And you know, we talked about, I think it was last episode where it really started coming together for them, you know, and just their camaraderie and everything. And I think that absolutely carries through into this episode as well, especially, you know, just trying to figure out what to do with this missile crisis and this JT and, you know, bleeding Genghis Grams.
Watching the episode back, I thoroughly enjoyed just everybody trying to cheer up Paul after he tortured the guy in the back room.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
He was just sad and depressed.
Oh God, I couldn't stop laughing at that whole ridiculous scenario, because it is so unlike a Flavana to do that, but at the same time I could see it coming down to the wire and it needs to happen. And God, I'm sorry, I already mentioned before we started recording that I'm really bad with names, but whoever plays Trumpet Royale, like really
Paul.
like his body like almost like takes on the character, and you can see his reactions. it's absolutely fantastic. And his name is terrific. It keeps on making me think of Royale with cheese from Pulp Fiction, and I don't know.
No, actually, me too. Every time I hear it. No, Paul's actually he's a drama teacher.
Oh, okay.
So
That makes a lot of sense then.
yeah, he's been acting. I mean, so we grew up with Paul. Me and Conrad. We've known Paul since third, fourth grade. So you're always in acting. He's now he teaches Chinese and drama at a local private high school here. So
Wow,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's he does quite a bit, but yeah, he certainly gets very animated and into the characters that he plays, and it definitely came out here.
Yeah, just this year right before everything happened, but he just started getting into using like role-playing games like with his drama club to start like developing characters better. So he was like really into the psychology of like Trumpet Royale. So like he was like, is it okay like if I like do like a Western accent? And I'm like, dude, like if that's how you feel, then just do it. It's gonna bring the character to life. And even though like Trumpet Royale sounds French, but sorry.
How did
perfectly okay?
Do you know how did he come up with that name, or did you come up with that name, Conrad?
Oh, I came up with the name.
Okay.
Yeah,
How did you come up with Trumpet Royale? Like, did you just open a dictionary and point, or what?
No. Like there's always like methodology to all of my names, even though like I know they all come off as like comical. It's all still like very pointed.
Yeah, because I remember you talking about like Mors Glacius and a couple of the others' names, but I don't know if I recall Trumpet Royale.
Yeah, Trumpet Royale is actually a type of mushroom. And yeah, so I was like going through, and where he was going to be this like huge Florvana, then I was like, what are all the largest types of mushrooms? And so that's when I was like cycling through, and I saw like Trumpet Royale. I mean, come on, like
yeah. I mean, how do you get better than that?
Yeah, you don't. Every Florvana from here until the end of time will be called Trumpet Royale now.
Phenomenal.
Excellent. That's awesome.
This great lineage.
He was the original.
Yeah.
What they created was from his spore.
Oh God, it sounds like you've spawned a religion, Tony. And this is how it starts.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there are a few parts in there that were like definitely evoked some memories from film. Like I kept on as you guys were like walking out into the street and trying to figure out how to conceal the missile. I kept on picturing, because Roy is so big, I kept on picturing like Arnold Schwarzenegger with a missile launcher. And it just made the joy of the experience just so much better.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, for real. Like, because the way I picture Pulse too is it is dense, but there just aren't Florvana around, and then if they are, they're not that big. So that's like I had the similar experience, like thinking everything through, like just wherever he walked, it's like this is just like so silly right now. Like the way he would stand out, just he couldn't hide from anybody.
How tall are Florvana typically? Are they not normally they're not normally like 8 feet tall?
I don't believe so off the top of my head. I'd have to go check the book to see what we wrote down for their height. But
right.
Yeah, no, I can tell you they're not. No, I purposefully chose a height that like they still get big, but I chose a height that exceeded what was written as like a maximum value in the book for averages.
So he would basically be like, and of course, bringing this back to wrestling, Andre the Giant. Yes.
Anybody want a peanut?
And then another foot taller.
And then another foot taller. No, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
It says standing at or above 7 feet, so he's definitely big for the race.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I wasn't quite sure. I figured 8 feet tall, was probably on the taller side, but I didn't know if it was like super uncommon or not.
But he does make a good point, though. In Pulse, it makes perfect sense for nature-oriented race such as the Slavana to kind of have almost stunted growth in a city like that. It's a keen observation.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of being a game master for this episode, like, so Genghis Gramps, the introduction of the character is, like, I feel like the name is like very jarring, where it's like, oh, this is like an important figure, just like based on the name alone. And so, like, speaking of implications, so then, like, you go with him, and then there's just like this implied that like whatever he's caught up with is going to be serious business. But then all he wants to do is sell some like magic juice. At which point then that whole side quest really was like, okay, Genghis Gramps is here to be like a red herring basically, and give you guys some juice.
But also kind of pushing the narrative forward a little bit.
Gotta get some juice.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gotta feel good.
And then the way it plays out, I mean, there's like 15 minutes dedicated to setting up this like contract and like long-term like juice business.
I was really impressed with some of the line of questions about that, actually. And I got this vibe that he was like, that Gramps was almost like Walter White entering into a deal with Gus Fring, if you've ever watched Breaking Bad. But
now that you say that,
I was like, wow, this is really like a Breaking Bad moment right here.
Yes. And because, and again, like, where that wasn't planned, but it was right, like the level of questioning, the players clearly wanted to go down that avenue. So I could have just, shut that down and been like, well, whatever, the juice is, inconsequential. But it's like, oh, the players are all now invested in what Genghis Gramps has to sell and want to keep him around. So like, let's just play this out. And I feel like as like a game master, those moments are like critical to like capturing your players and keeping them invested and getting into the characters more. So yeah, so for the record, like I was not planning that.
Yeah. It was a really nice sidebar though, and I have to agree with you though that every group is going to veer away from whatever your narrative is, and there are some wonderfully crystallized moments as a game master when sometimes that happens and the players like take the agency away from you as the game master and start kind of running the story and you're just following along, that are so beautiful, for lack of a better word.
I completely agree. I mean, just off the top of my head, I remember Nate was this like orc farmer, and it was like a pretty standard quest just to like veer into like old D&D. It was just like, oh, like you guys like have this village and it's about to be attacked by orcs, and Nate just like charges the group and goes to convince them that he was like did their war chief, and he just like gets a crit on the roll, so they're all like, oh, like he is the new war chief. And then like this whole just supposed to be like the town's like besieged by orcs, and like the entire session is supposed to be just like ongoing battles and like the recovery of it, but instead it's just like, oh no, I'm actually your chief and we're going to basically set up it was like
pig
a Chick-fil-A,
farming, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like basically Chick-fil-A except with pigs.
Right.
It was like pig fillet basically.
I love it.
And yeah, and then it turned into hours of that, and but then it was,
I forgot all about this.
Yeah, it was hilarious and fun. And then like the rival like grumpy farmer, like Nate's like personal like rival, and it wasn't like a violent rivalry, it was just like, and like they go to like check in on him, and the orcs are all there on his farm in like overalls and just like running his farm for him, and the guy's missing, and they're just like, oh, I don't know. And so then it's like,
and none of us look further into it.
Nope.
So
I
yes,
love that.
yeah, and that's right. So like the player sidebars can turn into these
ridiculous,
gigantic
yes.
storylines.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, didn't in that
Yeah.
same game I adopt like a goblin tribe as well?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you did, didn't you?
Yeah, it was like by pure coincidence. And I mean, it's just like kind of like the basic starters. It's like, oh, what do we throw at people? Yeah, orcs
It's
and
like
goblins.
obviously goblins.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Nate happens to be playing an orc, and Tony happens to be playing a goblin, and so then through a little bit longer avenue, but still ultimately the same results. Like, yeah, Tony became leader of these goblins, and so then it was just this massive like corporation formed instead. But
Pig fillet.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful.
yeah.
And I completely forgot about all of that.
Yeah, and I think that when you have groups that it's also a great sign of creativity and getting into like social skills and teaching creativity. Like, you just want to encourage those moments where it's like, we're not going to settle this with violence, but instead, like find ways to be profitable through either peace or trickery. And here, where it's like the combats, of course, could escalate, but what we see is they go out of their way last episode, like to save him and to save moves like Jagger, where like Trumper Royale's like, no, like I'm gonna do like a sliding catch into the wall to make sure that he doesn't perish here, and then we we'll take the next step. And then same here, where it's like, okay, Genghis Cramps comes too, and I mean it's ultimately like sinister, but as Zippy pointed out before, like, no, it was just a straw man.
We had his best interests in mind. It was sinister light.
They really did sound at a certain point like legitimately concerned for his well-being, and it was fantastic. And it kind of actually makes me feel a little ashamed because my own stories of players taking their own agency and veering off the beaten path has almost always ended with my players starting up a criminal enterprise and like enslaving a whole city. And I look back and I'm like, I don't know how we got here, but here we are.
Where did this all start?
It happened playtesting Shattered. We were playtesting Shattered with a group, and it was the origins of our the campaign that we have out available now. And they airship crash, and we make you have to choose between survivors and things like that. And they immediately said, okay, which of the survivors have the most money? And so they started with that, saved the richest ones, took them back to Pulse. And when they got there, they got assaulted. People took the MacGuffin, and they were supposed to go chase after that. But instead, they were like, okay, we're going to take our pay for rescuing you. And then they sold them into slavery. They found the slavers. They beat the slavers up. They took the people back and the slavers' money, and then they did it all over again until they had enough money to like buy out all the criminals in the city. And
fantastic.
I was like, "What, guys? The MacGuffin's gonna like destroy the world in a week. Like, what are you doing?" But they were perfectly fine with where things were going. And it was a blast, but my players are nowhere near as noble and friendly to NPCs.
And I mean, we've certainly had our share of parties that haven't been either.
Yeah, it can definitely be a struggle to reel in those urges, where it's like, I mean, and there's of course just memes about it where it's like, cast fireball. No, I didn't ask how big the room is. I cast fireball. Yep, you massacred the entire room. The place is on fire. The place next door catches on fire because there's no real system to extinguish these levels of blaze. And oh no, the whole town burned down. You guys are now like wanted criminals, and you just obliterated all of these people for really no reason.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, like those moments happen, and it's like, are you sure you want to do that? Other players, like, don't you have some sort of motivation to stop this from happening? Like, and I think that is an important thing too. Now that we're like kind of talking about this, where like getting motivation up front with your characters and making the players believe it. So like the motivation is of these characters, it's like, okay, and going back to the first episode, it's like, all right, you've set up this place where you've developed this reputation of you get things done, but you get them done in like a peaceful way. And I think that all the players just bought into that. It's like, okay, yeah, that like we're successful from this history of doing this, even though, we didn't play that out per se. Our character's history is such. And finding those fun motivations still too, where I feel like, and Tony can speak to this, where he was a player, like the motivations of GE were, just not to cause mass chaos or to become overly violent. It was to accomplish things.
It really does. It really did come across like these are a bunch of like hardworking, somewhat normal people.
That was certainly
like,
the vibe I got.
Caught up in the midst of something sinister.
And well above their pay grade.
And well above their pay grade, absolutely. And yeah, like I said before, it was an absolute joy to watch. I mean, it is anytime we hear from any GMs running Shattered, but it's not often you get to actually like sit down and watch how it plays out without your influence.
No,
and
cool.
So
I'm
I can only thank you guys for that. It's been a treat.
Hey, it's been a treat for us as well. But like when we first started this whole project, like I don't think we dreamed of even being able to talk with developers and all of this stuff and how this is. You guys are really the first that reached out to us and kind of put the bug in our ear, like, maybe this isn't. It wouldn't be so hard to get developers involved, and that's actually kind of what got the ball rolling with that, and how we ended up getting a lot. We got in contact with a lot more developers from there. So I definitely gotta kind of thank you guys for
lots of credit to Tex for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. He's been Tex has been great with giving us a lot of information and memes. Oh my God, the memes. Tex is a meme factory, guys.
He is. It's one of his lesser known skills, but yeah, he is.
Yeah, I totally agree that just the teamwork that we formed, between us and like the Shattered team has just been great, and Shattered is just so much fun. I mean,
I did want to ask you guys about that, about your opinions, obviously from the mental health standpoint, because that's such a focus for you guys, but also just as RPG players, like, have you legitimately have fun? What do you think of the game?
As a player, I thoroughly enjoyed the game as a whole. The whole setting, you guys put so much work into like the backstory and the lore of everything, and I am huge into that. I honestly, occasionally will spend hours upon hours just watching lore videos on YouTube on various things, and I just get caught in those rabbit holes. So the fact that you guys just had like, pages upon pages of this stuff was just amazing.
I mean, that timeline, my God.
Oh yeah, that was a very long process to develop that timeline. But I'm with you though. I got stuck on. I just watched the 5th episode of A Star Days recently, and if you haven't seen it, it's incredible.
I've not seen it, no.
Yeah, animated by one dude, and it's amazing the work he put into it. But I got sucked into a 40K lore YouTube trip after that.
Oh,
so I'm with you. I mean, I'm a huge 40K fan to begin with, but there's always more. So.
Oh, certainly. And there's so much.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, so I actually still have yet to play Shattered. So obviously I wasn't in this game.
You were in this episode, though. I saw you. 14 minutes and 22 seconds. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I did.
Yes. You can actually, if you guys pay close enough attention, you can actually see me. You can see my laptop in the corner of the screen under the Deges Dragons logo. I was in the room for maybe a total of 20 minutes or so. Because the first two parts I sat out in the other room because I didn't.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're telling Lost about that.
I didn't think I'd be able to be, in the room on camera or be in the room without being on camera. And I was right. And I noticed that about 20 minutes into this episode. And I actually I stopped the gameplay and I was like, guys, I got to go. I'm in the frame. So yeah, I ended up having to cut me walking out of the room out. But
I had just listened to your episode with Lost beforehand and how you mentioned that. And I was like, and then I watched the episode and I was like, he said he wasn't in the room. He was clearly right there.
Yep. Yeah, it was literally like 20 minutes. I was like, it was when we started like filming this episode. I was just like, I'm bored. I'm sitting out in the other room by myself. Like I just,
you can hear us laughing through the wall. He's
I want to see what's going on. Because
you sad music,
like
you're against the door.
And the funny thing is, right before we started filming, I left the door open because that way I figured I could hear what's going on and whatever, And then Billy goes, can you close that door? And I'm like, I go, why? He goes, because open doors just make me really uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, all right, fine. So then we had to close the door. I'm like, okay, whatever.
That is a small hell I would not wish upon anybody.
Oh yeah. So for like 5 hours, I was just sitting in the other room where all my friends are in the other room having fun. And every 45 minutes, they'd be like, "All right, Nate, we're done. Start the new recording." And I'd come in and start everything up. All right, guys, have fun. Paul,
get out.
Basically, Paul every time we're like, "Okay, thanks, Dad."
Right. Oh, Master gave Dobby a sock.
Oh, yep. That was
Nate will be in part 2.
I will be in part 2. I told Conrad, I'm like, I don't care if we have to put 5 players on, I'm playing.
Yeah, I already have Nate's character plotted out and just like how he meets up with the group and why he follows them around
and I don't want to give spoilers, but I didn't know you started on that. Is it what we talked about in private on Discord?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah,
I'm very excited about that. You guys should be very excited about that too.
Tony, at some point if you're involved in that game, you need to convince the rest of the group to like lock him out of the room that everybody else is in.
Yes.
Hey, we can't trust this new guy.
Yeah.
He looks sketchy.
But yes, the game is very fun. Like as Tony was saying about the lore, it's fantastic. I also love like a big thing that I really like to do is it's just character creation. So like I look at like the different races and classes in like all these different games, and like I'm immediately like, all right, like what am I making in this game? And the way the characters are written up and their abilities and the way that the whole system works is super fun. And then the mechanics themselves, just like I love the battle mechanics. Like it just makes so much sense that like you're a team, like you should be able to plan things out a little bit better than every other system. Like,
I definitely like that myself.
Yeah, like we won the initiative. All right, now like if we're all acting within this hypothetical 6 seconds anyway, why do we have to maintain this precise order? Not to quote other games. But yeah, and then the way that like stress and fear works, like included in that on top of like all like the cool just like
Iron and Argon
combat. Yes, yeah, Iron and Argon. Yeah, that's all super fun too, just to have both layers of like the physical combat and the mental combat. And I know we didn't showcase all of it, and we will continue to showcase more going forward, but just with like Psi and martial arts and well, we have seen all the social prowess of Moors thus far.
Yeah.
And we did see like a little bit of the psi powers with just like pulling like the sniper rifle right out of moves like Jagger's hands.
Which, by the way, that is going to be one of my favorite names for an NPC you've come up with, period. And I keep meaning to tell you that. Moves like Jagger.
Yeah.
So like I personally have always hated that song.
Oh, I don't like the song. I just thought it was a great name.
Yeah, it really is.
So like when I was like looking at this like Wretched, I'm like, I really don't like him, and like I don't think any of the players are gonna like him.
So he's got to have a name that make people not like him. That's perfect.
Awesome.
So like I said, they're always planned names.
Oh yes.
Method to the madness.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm sure we could do a complete deep dive like podcast and all the different Easter eggs and things Conrad put into every.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not just Shattered, but I mean everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're no strangers to it either. I mean, you go dig through the book, it's littered all over the place.
Oh yeah,
Especially in talents, like little hint nods at movies and stuff like that.
Like in Kids on Bikes, like the not the vice principal Geraldine, but the actual principal is like named after our former principal from like the grade school we grew up. We met at. There's a few other things in there too. I can't think of.
I love that stuff. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for the kind words. It's always appreciated, especially, we obviously have put a lot of work into this, but I don't just want to ask you questions that give you an opportunity to tell us how good we did. If you have any criticisms, I'd love to hear those too.
Well, let me get my
and seriously, honestly, I'm not, an important, we've, as I'm sure you've experienced with text to a certain degree, we really try to make sure we're not only available for our community, but we're really open about development and what we're working on and things like that. So, you got something real nasty to give me that everyone else has been afraid to tell me about, hit me, because I'm,
I mean,
by all means.
From my perspective, where I haven't actually personally played the game, it's a little hard for me to say. I mean, from everything that I've read, in the books, everything I've talked to, Conrad, Tony, the other players about, I mean, I can't wait to play. So I don't know, Conrad and Tony, that would be up to you guys there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what we played for the show is the extent that I've played Shattered up until this point. Definitely want to play more, whether it's with Deges time or whether it's just us playing again for
funsies,
for the fun of it. Exactly. I definitely enjoyed everything, and maybe it was the new player aspect of the trying the new system for the first time, just trying to wanting to enjoy everything that was kind of thrown at me.
Sure.
Trying to take everything in strides. Tried to not look at it in a critical light, at least in that front. But going forward, we'll definitely keep an ear out, because obviously when we want to help you guys
don't spare us.
No, not at all.
My guys don't work unless their souls are beaten into the ground.
Oh, God.
I'm trying to really honestly think of something to be critical about, and like nothing really comes to mind. Like the only thing that I didn't know ahead of time, which may be in the book, was just like the forms of communication, which I learned after the fact anyway, because again, you're all very responsive, which is why like in the moment I was like beepers. And so I don't know if I said that before too, just like for the record, like beepers were not like written in the book, to my knowledge, like as like the form of communication. I was just kind of thinking like, I feel like communication is difficult and not instant. But at the same time, like there are like some technological marvels. So there could be just like something, and it's like, yeah, like beepers, like, that sounds fun. So, but then it was brought to my attention that it was like mainly like Telegram afterward, which also makes sense.
I wasn't judging.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, did you were you totally blindsided when I said beepers?
Well, at first I was like, what? What did he just say? And there were a couple of moments in there where it probably was just the audio, because I know you guys were using the old equipment for this, but I was like, at one point you had said it was a missile in the box, but when I heard it, I heard mizzle. And I'm like, what the heck is a mizzle? So I was just like, dude, this guy's making up his own lore. He's building on top of the world. This is perfect. I'm good. Like,
Hey,
I didn't
that's not a bad
question
thing.
it whatsoever.
But speaking of missile, one, how surprised you that it was a missile, and two, what do you think the real deal is with it?
Oh boy. I was definitely surprised that it was a missile, but I was also, I don't know what I haven't listened to the podcast texted yet with you guys yet, and I don't know what he has told you about me, but I'm kind of messed up in the head a little bit. If you've read through any of the monster descriptions, especially the more gruesome ones, those are all mine, and I come from a very dark place. But I kept on wanting, for both the sake of the reference and just because it would be kind of terrifying. I was like, what's in the box? What's in the box? Like, is it a head? Like, but when it was a missile, I was like, hey, that's cool. So someone stole some like secret pulse tech, and and they're trying to, like, I don't know what they're doing with it, but I mean, the fact that Roy is trying to, like, playing kind of like an eco-terrorist almost, that wants to level Pulse for all of their injustices and things like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe there's someone like in the Pulse higher ups that share his have sympathies for that cause, and maybe let something slip that make it useful to his ends. That's my best guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I love hearing like what people think like is going to happen with like the storyline. And I could just like watching back the video too, like watching the players' faces when they were passing the missile back and forth to see like how it affected them. They're all
potato.
Yeah, like, wait, what? What's happening with it?
Yeah, that was definitely surprising, because at first I was like, oh, it's a missile, okay, no big deal. But it was like, oh, whoa, it like empowers you when you hold it. Like, what is this?
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not
Conrad's
even sure
ability
it's
to
a missile at this
foreshadow
point. It might just be something else masquerading as a missile. I don't know.
So one thing I did want to actually touch on, and something that I'm actually shocked we have not brought up yet through all three of these Deges casts about Shattered so far. The music to the Shattered series that we picked out. This is actually the artist that did all the tracks, the soundtrack for this particular series is one of the OG Deges. Unfortunately, he just does not want to have anything to do with having his face on YouTube, so he's not actually part of Deges and Dragons or anything like that. But our buddy Brian goes by the stage name Mosaiq. Mosaiq's actually going to be joining us on the Degecast in about 2 weeks as well for a special episode. We've got 2 episodes of the Degecast for you guys that week, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But Brian Mosaiq, he has been making music for a little while now, the EDM scene. And I'm kind of curious to see what you thought of the music that not only he created, but that I chose to put, in the background to these different scenes so far. Have you liked what you heard?
I have thoroughly enjoyed the music. I'm started at, I wouldn't say started, but at 16 I became a metalhead, and then in and around my 20s I started realizing that metal was not everything, and started venturing out into other things. And like right now I'm like been sucked into this vortex of like 80s synth pop and and all kinds of electronic stuff. So I was on board with a lot of the music that I've heard so far.
Awesome.
And a lot of it was really gave a nice backdrop to everything. I think there was only episode 2, I think, might have been the roughest point, but I think there were a little bit of some audio issues with the mics as opposed to the music itself. So can't really blame that.
Yeah, I did my best to try and balance the sound of the music between the audio of the players, but it kind of became impossible with just how many audio issues we had.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I can't fault the music or you for that when your tech fails. I mean,
yeah.
And there was only one part in I think it was the first episode, whatever track that was. There was a part where like the music stops and there's almost like this like little horn piece in the middle of it.
Yep.
And sometimes that would like overpower everything else. But other than that, everything was awesome.
Cool. No, glad to hear it. Because yeah, it was because his
music, he makes cool music too. So props to him.
He does. It's very unique. It's very drum and bass is oriented. And it's funny because if you actually listen to that on like his music on a really good set of speakers, it adds like a completely new dynamic and dimension to the track. But yeah, Conrad and I talking about it back back after we shot the episode. I mean, it might have even been before we shot the episode. And I don't remember whose idea it was. I think it was Conrad's, to ask Brian if he'd be willing to let us use his music, for this, because it is so weird and strange and unique that it was kind of like, I feel, we both felt like it would lend itself really well to the backdrop of what you guys created.
Oh yeah, it totally did. It really did mesh very well with everything that was going on. The story being told, the world, the green screen stuff that you guys were doing.
Awesome. And Mosaiq actually becomes a little bit more of a integral part of the story as we go too. So
interesting.
Not maybe slight spoilers, but it's cool to see what happens next episode.
I'm so bad with names, I will have forgotten by the time I see it. So you're good.
No problem. Okay, cool.
Because I mean, he's been making music for years, and my own like visions of like what's happening like as these songs are ongoing. It's just like we just got really excited about being able to combine that, where it does have this like otherworldly feel sometimes, and then like those like powerful like bass moments where it's like, and the place is called Pulse too, where it's almost
right.
It's like it's almost too obvious.
To
blend these things.
So you listened to the music beforehand, and you kind of had it in mind as you were running the game.
So Brian gave us a list of like a list of tracks that he was like willing to let us use essentially.
Sure.
And when I was basically editing it, I would just kind of choose the track I felt worked best in the moment.
Okay.
So like there's a few tracks I think haven't even come up yet. There's actually one track, and I think it's in episode 4 or 5. I can't remember, but I know it's either in 4 or 5. I don't remember which one. But it was funny because like I was at a point where I was at a scene, and I can't remember what scene it was, but I needed one of his tracks for it, obviously, and I couldn't find one that really worked. And so I said I texted Brian. I was like, "Hey, do you maybe have something like one other track or something? Like I'm looking for something that fits X vibe." And he's like, "Actually, I quite literally just finished this about an hour ago." And he sends it to me, and I went, "Oh my God, perfect!" And I threw it in. So I think the name of that one was like Hueco Mundo Beta or something like that. Or no.
Right. Oh no. Yeah, it was Waco Mundo.
No, sorry, it wasn't that one. It was like I'm looking at the file right now, and the file name is actually different. He changed the name of the song, so I can't remember what the name of the song is, but it's in the episode. It's in the episode. But the original name of it was like Punado, Punado. But yeah, so like just things like that. We were able to talk to him and kind of collaborate with him to get some of that. And
actually, that does remind me that when I actually wrote him like a description of like what was going to be happening and like what the world was, and that's like how he generated that whole.
Oh, I didn't know that.
For Nate, which Nate then like placed well. To say like, so like it wasn't just like, oh, like you were allowed to have these songs of mine. Like he was like, I think all of these songs will fit all of your needs.
Okay. I learned something. I didn't even know that.
I'm continually impressed at watching your episodes so far, both with us and the other ones you've done with some of the other games, and your podcast, is how similar our respective experiences have been with our particular crafts. Like it's kind of weird, and maybe I'm just projecting a little bit, but it's that interaction with an artist is where, you know, you kind of give them the sense of what you're hoping to achieve, and then they give you something back that is so perfect that it influences the way that you continue working on whatever the project was is absolutely incredible. And can't tell you how many artists we work with that we gave the brief to, and then they come back and we're like, oh, didn't expect that, but that is way cooler than what we told you, so we're gonna go with that.
Yeah.
No, and that
really
collaborative world building that happens is really, really incredible. It's awesome to hear. And you guys are really lucky to have someone making music for you too, because that stuff is expensive if you want to license it.
Yeah, no, I know. And so far, this is the only time we've actually been able to work with an artist to kind of have like a custom soundtrack. You know, all of the other games that we've done, including Kids on Bikes, but everything else that's coming down the pipe, it's all basically Creative Commons license, free use stuff that I've found here and there. That there's actually, YouTube has an audio library that has a ton of music and sound effects that you can use. So I've used that quite a bit. But it was really cool to actually have like a custom soundtrack for one of our games. It just, it's really cool. And I think it really lent itself to the entire story and to the Shattered universe.
Yeah, and that's too why I like almost don't want to ask him to do like anything else, because I'm like, no, like this is like the Shattered world.
Shattered 2.
Yeah. Or until of course we return to generous, then Mosaiq's beats will return.
100%.
That puts that puts the craziest grin on my face. It really does.
No, I mean, I can't say I blame you. I can't say I blame you. But no, like I said, this has been a really cool collaboration with you guys. I know, Tex's wife Asha, she shared a lot of the artwork with me that I was able to then put into the game. Most of which already was in season 1 for the most part. But some of the backdrops are season 1, episode 1. But some of the backdrops and things like that, coming up through the next few episodes. So it's cool because we hadn't, up to this point, we hadn't had that type of a collaboration with another developer, and then we were able to do that down the line with Bear Winters Project by with
I
Miracle.
love that guy.
Oh God, Bear's the man. So
he actually did some of our art. I don't know if anyone else has mentioned that, but
I didn't know that.
Some of the real stark, like strong black and white monster art at the back of the book, like all of that was his.
Oh, and that makes sense too, because that's a lot of what he's got in his books, the black and white.
Yep.
Like yeah.
Yep. He was trying to like refine his craft, and he had done a bunch of like fan art, I guess fan art you could call it. We had gotten connected over a Kickstarter campaign, and he had volunteered to like take Shattered to KublaCon in around San Francisco area somewhere. And he ran like a couple of playtest games over the course of the weekend there.
Wow.
For us, and sent us back all kinds of stuff. But he had written characters up, he had done art for them and everything, and it was incredible. And then he was looking to try and get some more practice in, and asked if anything. And it was just a really incredible moment too, because we had just like emptied out our art budget. And so it was a real almost godsend to have him show up and want to do some incredible artwork for us too.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, and he definitely seems like the type of guy that would do that. He's the one that gave us got us the connection with the Badana group.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's cool. He's a great dude. Great dude.
Yeah, absolutely amazing man. I love him to death. And I can't talk enough about the guy because after all of the stuff was Shattered, he was like, you know what, guys, I want to make my own RPG. And then he just went and he did it. And it was so awesome to like not have any involvement with the project and just to watch someone like start with an idea and like build it practically overnight and see what it turned into. I cannot speak enough amazing things about the guy. It must be a man crush or something, but
it must be. It must be.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh no, there's nothing ever wrong with that, but never really considered it until now.
All right, guys. So this has been another episode of the Deges Cast. If you guys want to be part of this show, you certainly can be. If you want to call in, you can certainly call in. Leave us a voicemail at, if I can actually, oh God, where's the number? I have it somewhere. Oh my God. But you know what? While I'm looking for the phone number, I can certainly give you the email address. It's degetime@gmail.com. That's DEGETIME@gmail.com. And while I continue to look for that phone number, Tony, why don't you say goodnight?
Good night.
Excellent, excellent. And that phone number is 617-506-9686. Again, 617-506-9686. Leave us a voicemail and we will get to it on the next episode. Conrad, good night.
Thanks. and thanks for coming on the show, Zip. It's been great.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely a pleasure.
100%.
Gasp. Yeah, it's been such
Did you see a pool of blood?
Yes. Yes. That was my first note. I wrote that down right away. I was like, this is great. Gasp is a meme now. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. We've all really enjoyed this opportunity to work with you guys. And if no one else has said it, if you guys ever need anything, guest on the show, someone else to help you out with something, doesn't matter, reach out to us. We're happy to lend a hand if there's anything.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and I'm sure we might take you up on that in the near future. We'll see what happens.
And for the record, real quick, after watching Roy's difficulty with the situation with the missile and the torture, we may introduce a new skill called Hug, because you guys did it so much.
Awesome.
Just for
That's
you.
Amazing.
An exclusive skill just for the Deges crew.
All right.
Phenomenal.
And not to mention, it's a hug. It's
Yes.
a hug. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
That's so great.
Love it. Paul is going to be over the moon when we tell him about that too. All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Deges Cast. I'm your host, Nate Lindberg. You can find me on Twitter @Nate Lindberg. We will see you next week. Have a good one.